The Sullivan family had gathered at Pine Summit Lodge every winter for 4 decades. From the outside, it looked like any other luxury mountain retreat, but for us it was where family legacies were forged and destroyed. I learned that lesson 15 years ago when my father announced my older brother Michael as his successor in the Grand Hall. Now, sitting in my private office 50 floors above Manhattan, I watched my family's plodding through the lodge's upgraded security system. They thought they were being clever, scheduling a casual family reunion that coincided with their secret board meeting. "It's nothing personal, Daniel," Michael continued, his perfect white teeth gleaming through the video call. "But with Dad stepping down, we need to focus on serious business matters." I played my part perfectly, shoulders slumping in rehearsed disappointment. "I understand. The tech startup life isn't exactly Sullivan Industries material." Our sister Catherine appeared in the frame, her Harvard MBA practically radiating through the screen. "Maybe if you joined the company instead of chasing your, what do you call them, apps, if they only knew that my small tech startups were a cover for Summit Enterprises, a conglomerate that had quietly become one of the largest private equity firms in the country. The same firm that had acquired Pine Summit Lodge through a series of shell companies 6 months ago. "Well, enjoy the reunion," I said, maintaining my defeated tone. "I'll be here working on my little projects." The call ended, and I switched my main screen to the lodge's security feed. The renovations I'd ordered were complete, every room now equipped with state-of-the-art surveillance and recording systems. Perfect for capturing whatever they were planning. James, my chief of operations, entered with a tablet. "Sir, the final preparations are ready. Your private suite at the lodge has been secured, and all the recording systems are operational. Show me the meeting room setup." The screen displayed the lodge's grand conference room, recently renovated with hidden microphones and cameras in the antique chandeliers. This was where they planned to hold their secret board meeting, unaware that every word would be recorded by the room's new owner. "And the documents?" I asked. James handed me a file. "We've confirmed their plan. They're using the family reunion as cover for an emergency board meeting. The agenda includes a motion to dissolve the family trust and redistribute the shares, cutting you out completely." I smiled, remembering the day I discovered their scheme. It was 3 years ago, during another family-only meeting I wasn't invited to. They'd forgotten about the lodge's old security system, the one I'd already accessed through my first shell company. Flashback, 3 years ago, Daniel's grandfather insisted on equal distribution, my father had said, his voice carrying through the poor quality recording. "But the trust has a clause about business competency. If we can prove he's unfit." "His little tech experiments are perfect evidence," Michael added. "No major successes, no significant revenue. We just need to wait for the right moment." That recording became the catalyst for my biggest acquisition yet. While they plotted my removal from the family fortune, I began buying up shares in Pine Summit Resort Group, the lodge's parent company. "Present day, Mr. Sullivan," my assistant Sarah buzzed through the intercom. "Your jet is ready for tomorrow's flight to the lodge." "Thank you, Sarah. Is everything else prepared?" "Yes, sir. Your modest rental car will be waiting at the airport, and your budget-friendly winter wardrobe has been packed." I'd maintained my carefully crafted image of moderate success for years. The family believed I lived in a small downtown apartment. I owned the building, drove a used car, one of many, and struggled with startup investments, my company's current value $4.2 billion. Looking out over the city, I pulled up the lodge's booking system. The Sullivan family had reserved their usual rooms, the best suites, the prime views. They didn't know those reservations now required my approval as the owner. My phone buzzed with a message from the lodge's manager. "Your family has requested the Grand Hall for their private meeting. Should we proceed as planned?" "Yes," I typed back. "Let them have their moment." For now, that evening I reviewed the final pieces of my plan. The evidence of their trust manipulation, the documentation of their secret meetings, and most importantly, the papers proving my ownership of their precious mountain sanctuary. James appeared with the latest report. "Sir, your brother has arrived at the lodge early. He's asking about accessing the conference room tonight." "Show me." The security feed displayed Michael in the lobby, his expensive suit a sharp contrast to the rustic decor I'd carefully maintained. "I need to prepare for tomorrow's meeting," he was telling the manager. "I'm sorry, sir, the manager replied with practiced politeness. The new owner has implemented strict booking protocols. The conference room will be available at your scheduled time tomorrow. New owner, Michael's face showed the first crack in his confident facade. Since when? The lodge was acquired 6 months ago, sir. All operational decisions now require proper authorization. I watched my brother's frustration build. He wasn't used to being denied anything, especially not at Pine Summit Lodge. For 40 years, the Sullivan family had treated this place like their private kingdom. That was about to change. In my safe, I kept a photo from 20 years ago, a teenage Daniel Sullivan presenting his first business plan to the family right there in the lodge's grand hall. They'd laughed, called it cute, patted my head, and moved on to praising Michael's latest accomplishment. That same grand hall would now witness a very different kind of presentation. The next morning, I boarded my private jet, though as far as my family knew, I was working from my modest apartment. The flight gave me time to review the surveillance feeds. One by one, the Sullivans were arriving, my father's Bentley, Catherine's Mercedes, various cousins and their luxury vehicles. They've gathered in the East Wing Lounge, James reported through the secure line. Your brother is discussing the board meeting details. I switched to that camera feed. Michael stood by the fireplace, holding court as usual. Once the trust is redistributed, we'll have complete control. Daniel won't even know what hit him until it's too late. Catherine sipped her champagne. Are we sure this is necessary? He's harmless enough with his little startups. The family legacy needs protection, my father interjected. Your grandfather meant well with his equal distribution plan, but times have changed. We need strong, proven business leadership. I landed at the private airstrip near the lodge, where my deliberately chosen modest rental car waited. The drive up the mountain gave me time to appreciate what I'd acquired. Pine Summit Lodge wasn't just a luxury resort, it was a symbol of everything my family thought I couldn't achieve. The lodge appeared through the snow, its massive timber frame rising against the mountain backdrop. I'd added subtle improvements, better security, upgraded facilities, modern technology hidden behind classic decor. Every change made under the guise of regular maintenance, never raising suspicion. I parked in the regular guest lot, away from my family's line of sight. Through my phone, I watched them prepare for their meeting. They'd gathered in the conference room, spreading out documents and laptops, ready to execute their plan. Sir, the lodge manager met me at the service entrance. Everything is prepared according to your specifications. Thank you, Robert. Is the system ready? Yes, sir. At your signal we can begin. I changed into my usual modest attire, the costume I'd worn for years to maintain their perception of my mediocrity. The final act of this long performance was about to begin. Through the security feed, I watched my father stand to address the board meeting. Now, regarding the trust redistribution, it was time. Begin Protocol Alpha. I spoke into my phone. The conference room lights dimmed slightly, and the massive screen behind them flickered to life. Their heads turned as their own words played back to them. 3 years of secret meetings, recorded discussions, planned manipulations. What the hell? Michael jumped up. How is this possible? The screen switched to my father's private conversations about dismantling the trust, then to Catherine's legal discussions about proving my business incompetence. Turn it off, my father demanded, but none of the controls responded. I'm afraid that's not possible, I said, stepping into the room. Not in my lodge. The silence was absolute. 5 pairs of eyes stared at me as I walked to the head of the table, my table. Your lodge? Catherine whispered. I smiled, ready to begin. The greatest business presentation of my life. Welcome to the real family meeting. The conference room's antique clock ticked heavily in the silence. My family sat frozen, their perfect composure cracking as the screens continued displaying their recorded schemes. This is ridiculous, Michael finally sputtered, attempting to regain control. You can't possibly own Pine Summit Lodge. The purchase would have required hundreds of millions, 430 million, to be exact, I interrupted, taking out my phone. With one tap, the screen switched to display Summit Enterprises' portfolio. Though that's a small investment compared to my other holdings. Catherine, ever the analyst, leaned forward to study the figures. Her face paled. These numbers, they can't be real. Your startups were never just startups, sister dear. I moved around the table, watching them process the truth. While you were mocking my little tech experiments, I was building an empire. Summit Enterprises currently manages assets worth over $12 billion. My father gripped the arms of his chair. Impossible. We would have known. Would you? I picked up one of their prepared documents. Their plan to declare me businessly incompetent. You were so convinced of my failure that you never bothered to look closer. Pride has a way of blinding people. Robert entered with a leather portfolio. Mr. Sullivan, the additional documents you requested. Michael's head snapped up. Since when does staff call you Mr. Sullivan? That's reserved for the owner. I smiled. For 6 months now. Every renovation you've praised, every upgrade you've enjoyed, every luxury you've experienced, has been provided by the son you dismissed. I opened the portfolio, spreading out photographs and documents chronicling my secret acquisition of the lodge. Your favorite winter retreat has been mine since last summer. Those confidential meetings you've been holding, all recorded in my conference room. Catherine, her legal mind finally engaging, reached for the papers. The purchase was made through Shell Corp Holdings. But that's one of my subsidiaries, yes. I pressed another button, and the screens showed my complete corporate structure, along with Alpine Ventures, Peak Investments, and about 30 other companies you never bothered to investigate. But your apartment, that old car, my father began, carefully maintained props father. I own the entire building, actually, along with significant real estate throughout the city. I sat down at the head of the table, his former position. It's amazing what you can accomplish when people underestimate you. The room fell silent again as they processed the scope of their miscalculation. Through the windows, snow began falling on the mountain peaks. My mountains now. Why? My father finally asked. Why the deception? Because you taught me well, father. The importance of appearance, of controlling the narrative. I gestured to the screens still showing their recorded meetings. I learned that lesson the day you announced Michael as your successor right here in this lodge. So I created the appearance you wanted to see, the harmless younger son, the failed entrepreneur. Michael stood up, straightening his tie in a nervous gesture I remembered from childhood. Fine, you've made your point. You're successful, congratulations. But the family business is struggling. I cut in. Sullivan Industries has lost market share for 3 consecutive quarters. Your outdated management style and resistance to digital transformation have cost you nearly 30% of your value. The color drained from my father's face. This was his nightmare. Not just that I had succeeded, but that I knew about their failures. I've been buying Sullivan Industries stock through various shells, I continued. I now control 28% of the company. Add that to my trust shares that you were planning to strip away. Catherine's quick math skills kicked in. You'd have controlling interest. Exactly. I stood up and walked to the windows, watching the snow blanket my property. So here's what's going to happen. The board meeting you planned for today will proceed, but with a different agenda. I distributed new folders to each family member. Inside you'll find my terms. Sullivan Industries needs modernization, new leadership, and a complete restructuring. You have 2 choices: accept my proposals, or I'll call for a vote of no confidence. With the evidence I have of mismanagement, guess who wins? They opened the folders with trembling hands, their faces showing various stages of shock as they read my demands. This is actually brilliant, Catherine admitted, reviewing my modernization strategy. The tech integration plan alone could save millions. The same plan I proposed 5 years ago, I reminded her. The one you called cute and naive. My father was reading through the documents more slowly, his face aging with each page. All this time, watching us plan this meeting, knowing what we intended. How did you stay so calm? Because father, you taught me another valuable lesson: patience. I learned to wait for the perfect moment, like when your enemies are gathered in your own lodge, planning their final move. Ni failder atu amisaf. With Sikdawain Sumnadup, Robert appeared at the door. Sir, your private suite is ready, and the chef has prepared lunch in the owner's dining room. Thank you, Robert. I turned to my family. You have until dinner to review my terms. I suggest you read them carefully. Your future in Sullivan Industries depends on it. As I walked toward the door, Michael called out, "Wait, what about our winter reservations? The lodge has been our family tradition for..." The lodge accepts bookings from all qualified guests, I replied without turning around. Though the premium suites are reserved for clients who never underestimated me. The door closed behind me, leaving them with their shattered plans and broken assumptions. Through my phone, I watched them stare at each other, then at the documents, then at the empire they'd never known existed. Up in my private suite, previously their favorite family apartment, I reviewed the security feeds while enjoying a perfectly aged scotch. My family remained in the conference room, their perfect facade crumbling as reality set in. Sir James appeared with an update. They've been trying to contact their lawyers, but as you predicted, no one's available during the holiday weekend. And the trust documents, secured in your safe, along with the evidence of their planned manipulation. I nodded, watching the snow continue to fall on my mountain kingdom. Have the chef prepare their usual favorites for dinner. I want them to remember every detail of this day, how it felt to learn that their unsuccessful son owned every inch of their precious retreat. The mountain peaks disappeared into the growing snowstorm, but I could still make out the lodge's impressive outline. My greatest acquisition, not for its value, but for the truth it revealed. Sometimes, the best revenge isn't in proving others wrong, but in proving yourself right. The owner's dining room at Pine Summit Lodge offered a panoramic view of the snow-covered mountains. As the evening approached, I watched my family file in one by one, their earlier confidence replaced by a new wariness. "Please, sit," I gestured to the hand-carved chairs. "I trust you've had time to review my proposals." The table was set with the finest china and crystal pieces I'd specially selected when I acquired the lodge. A subtle reminder that every detail of their beloved retreat now bore my touch. Michael cleared his throat, his usual swagger noticeably diminished. "Your terms, they're quite comprehensive. I've had years to plan them," I replied, signaling the staff to begin serving. "While you were plotting to strip away my inheritance, I was preparing to save our grandfather's legacy." "Save it?" My father's voice carried a hint of his old authority. "Sullivan Industries has been losing market share consistently." I cut in, pulling up the latest financial reports on the dining room's hidden screens. "Your resistance to digital transformation has made us vulnerable to more agile competitors." Catherine, who had been unusually quiet, spoke up. "Your proposal for AI integration in our supply chain, it's similar to what you suggested 3 years ago." "The same proposal you called unrealistic." I nodded. "The one that my tech company implemented for our competitors, generating them a 40% increase in efficiency." The first course arrived, their favorite dishes, perfectly prepared. I watched them struggle between their appetite and their wounded pride. "The board won't accept an outsider taking control." Michael attempted. I smiled, taking a sip of wine. "An outsider? I'm a Sullivan. The same Sullivan you've been undermining for years." And as for the board, I pressed another button on my phone, displaying a series of stock transactions. "I've been building relationships with key members for months. They're quite impressed with my track record." "You've thought of everything, haven't you?" my father muttered. "I learned from you, father. You always said success is in the details." I gestured around the dining room. Like this lodge, every renovation, every upgrade, every improvement was planned to demonstrate what modern leadership could achieve. The main course arrived, and for a few minutes the only sounds were the clink of silverware and the crackle of the fireplace. Through the windows, snow continued to fall, isolating us further in our mountain confrontation. "What happens if we refuse?" Catherine finally asked. I put down my fork. "Then I call for an emergency board meeting. Between my shares and my allies' support, I'll have enough votes to force a leadership change. The evidence of your planned trust manipulation will become public, and the Sullivan name will face its biggest scandal in 3 generations." "You wouldn't dare," Michael hissed. "It would damage the company." "The company is already damaged," I countered. "By outdated thinking, by nepotism, by the arrogance that made you believe you could dismiss innovation simply because it came from the wrong son." I stood and walked to the windows, my reflection overlaying the snowy landscape beyond. "But I'm offering you a chance to be part of the solution, to modernize Sullivan Industries and restore its position as a market leader. Under your leadership," my father added quietly. "Yes, because I've proven I can lead." not through inheritance or favoritism, but through actual success. I turned back to face them. The same success you mocked as cute little projects. The dessert arrived, a sophisticated take on the apple pie our grandmother used to make for family gatherings. Another calculated detail to remind them of what family should mean. And what about the lodge? Catherine asked. Will we still be allowed to? You can make reservations like any other guests, I replied. Though I suggest reviewing the new terms of service carefully. All common areas are monitored for security purposes. My father pushed his dessert aside. You've destroyed our family traditions. No, father, you did that when you decided some family members were more valuable than others. I'm simply changing the rules of engagement. James appeared at the door. Sir, the weather report suggests the storm will intensify overnight. Shall I have the staff prepare guest rooms? I checked my phone. Yes, but in the standard wing, not their usual suites. Those are being renovated. The message wasn't subtle. Their privileged position at Pine Summit Lodge was over. You have until morning to sign the agreements, I announced, standing. The storm provides a perfect opportunity for uninterrupted consideration. As they rose to leave, my father lingered behind. Daniel, was there ever a chance for us to notice, to see what you were building? I looked at him, seeing for the first time not the intimidating figure of my childhood, but an aging man facing his own failures. You could have looked beyond your preconceptions at any time. You chose not to. Left alone in the dining room, I watched the storm transform the mountain landscape. Through my phone, I monitored my family as they retreated to their assigned rooms, standard accommodations that would have been beneath them just yesterday. Sir James appeared with an update. They've been making calls, trying to find alternatives. But as expected, the storm has made outside communication difficult. I nodded, finishing my wine. Sometimes nature conspires with justice, James. Let them face this storm alone, just as I faced their dismissal for all these years. The night settled over Pine Summit Lodge, my greatest acquisition, not in its value, but in the truth it forced my family to face. By morning they would make their choice, adapt to my leadership, or face the consequences of their past actions. In my private suite, I reviewed the security feeds one last time. My family's world had shifted on its axis, and tomorrow would determine whether they could accept their new reality or lose everything they'd taken for granted. Morning at Pine Summit Lodge brought crystal clear skies after the storm, a perfect backdrop for the final act of my family's transformation. I stood in the grand hall, where years ago they'd laughed at my business aspirations. Now watching them file in with signed documents in hand. We've reviewed everything. Catherine spoke first, her lawyer's precision evident in her tone. The terms are acceptable. Michael placed his signed agreement on the antique table. You've left us no choice. There's always a choice, brother, I replied, moving to the window. Just like you all chose to dismiss me, rather than see my potential. My father approached last, his papers clutched tightly. For a moment I saw him hesitate, the proud man struggling with his new reality. The digital transformation plan, he said quietly. It's brilliant. We should have listened years ago. Yes, you should have. I turned to face them. But now you'll listen because you have to, not because you want to. James entered with the final contracts. Sir, the board members are ready for the video conference. On the massive screen, the Sullivan Industries board appeared, ready to witness the transfer of power. I watched my family's faces as I outlined the new structure, my role as CEO, the modernization plans, the technical integration that would save our grandfather's legacy. All in favor, I asked the board. The votes were unanimous. My family stood silent as their control slipped away, replaced by the son they'd underestimated. There's one more thing, I announced, bringing up new documents on the screen. The lodge's booking system has been updated. You'll find your permanent reservations have been adjusted. Michael's voice cracked. Your premium suite privileges are revoked. However, I allowed myself a small smile. I'm maintaining a family wing. Standard rooms, of course. We are still Sullivans after all. Catherine studied me carefully. You're not just punishing us, are you? This is about rebuilding everything. The company, the lodge, the family. Finally someone understands. I walked to the ancient fireplace, where family photos spanning generations lined the mantel. Grandfather built this legacy for all of us, not just the chosen few. I'm restoring that vision. My father stepped forward, looking older but somehow clearer. You planned this for years, watching us learning our weaknesses, building your strength in secret. I learned from the best, father. You taught me that power isn't about showing strength, it's about knowing when to reveal it. The morning sun streamed through the lodge's windows, casting long shadows across the grand hall. Outside, the fresh snow sparkled on my mountains. A clean slate for the new Sullivan era. The company announcement goes out in an hour, I informed them. I suggest you prepare for the press coverage. Brilliant younger son takes helm of family empires makes for interesting headlines. They nodded, accepting their new reality, with varying degrees of grace. As they turned to leave, I called out one last time. Remember this moment, I said softly. Remember how it feels to be underestimated, to be dismissed. Because from now on, every decision in this company and this lodge will pass through the sun you thought would never succeed. Later in my private suite, I watched them depart in their luxury cars, heading back to a world that had shifted beneath their feet. James appeared with the final reports. The transition team is in place, sir. Sullivan Industries stock is already responding positively to the announcement. I nodded, holding up a glass to the mountain vista. To new beginnings, James, and to the power of patience. The sun caught the crystal chandelier, casting rainbow reflections across the room. Below, Pine Summit Lodge continued its daily operations, now running smoothly under my authority. The empire I'd built in secret was finally in the light. On my desk I placed the old photo of my teenage self, standing proud with my first business plan. Next to it, I set the newly signed contracts, proof that sometimes the best revenge isn't in destroying your opponents, but in becoming what they never thought you could be. The Sullivan legacy would continue, but under new management. Sometimes I mused, a storm must come to clear the air, and reveal the truth of what was there all along. The end.